What's going on, YouTube? I want to have a brief conversation tonight about UFC 235. Just mainly um, the the co-main event and the main event. Now, you had two champions fighting on this card, John Jones and Tyrone Woodley. And if you look at the situation, both champions were in trap fights. They're going up against two opponents that are somewhat similar to them. Especially being in that stance of Woodley. You look at Usman. Usman is Tyrone Woodley um, entering into Strikeforce. That's who Usman is. I mean, a very good wrestler. You know what I'm saying? They got some heavy hands that can catch people here and there. So you're looking at yourself a couple of years ago as far as Woodley. And, Anthony Smith is one of the more experienced fighters in the UFC period. Has altogether 70 MMA fights. Has flown under the radar in the UFC for a very long time. And I always looked at him when he fought, man, like, and thought this dude has a lot of potential. Was on an upswing, but really hadn't faced anybody on John Jones' level. He had faced some of the top light heavyweights. Rashad was on a downswing, and Shogun could be arguably, have been on the same. But nonetheless, finished both of those guys within a month. Finished and submitted Uzdemir, and the guy was on the upswing, and John Jones, is coming off of a very impressive performance, dismantling the only guy who really had given him a real go since Vitor Belfort. Gave him it really passed Vitor Belfort. Gave John Jones the most competition he's ever had in the UFC, if you ask me. John Jones was bloodied, and some people even argued that Gustafsson won the first fight. But let's go back to this and talk about the fact that both of these guys, like I said, they were both winning trap fights. And you look at both of their performances, and you look at what won and what didn't. Um, John Jones performed like a champion. He came in like a professional, analyzed the situation, and he put forth his game plan. Woodley, there were times in that fight where I felt like Woodley had the upper hand. He could have taken over the fight, but he didn't. Even when his corner talked to him and told him what to do, it seemed like he just wasn't listening. It seemed like he couldn't flip that switch in his head to say, okay, this is what we need to do. And I think things kind of threw him off. You know what I mean? Like, Usman is a big dude, man. And he's not a striker. He's a big dude that does pressure wrestling. And I think that's what really threw Tyron off. You know what I mean? Like, because bigger dudes he's fought, they've always been strikers. And he could counter, sit back and wait and wait for them to act and then react to what they do and outspeed them. You know what I mean? And use his speed. But Usman is just a big dude that wrestles. So he outgrinded Woodley. But I'm sure, very sure, Woodley will go back to the drawing board. Woodley had a lot of stuff going on leading up to this fight, which is no excuse. I'm not making excuses for anybody. He didn't make any for himself, so I'm not making excuses. Woodley is definitely my favorite fighter right now. John Jones has always been one of my favorite, but with all the crazy stuff that's going on, but whatever. Um, the thumb injury, you know, we don't know how much that affected, Woodley's training, and Woodley saw some things in there, and he just shut down. I feel like after he went for that guillotine and he couldn't sink it in, and Uzdemir laid on top of him for a while, I think he just shut down mentally, and I think he kind of went on autopilot, and that trap fight disadvantage started to weigh in on him, and he started looking at like this dude. He just wrestles, man. I just got to keep him off me, and I'll catch him with something. He kind of got out of the normal game plan he usually has. Like, well, I got to implement this so I can get this. And he started looking for the big finish. All right, well, I'll submit him. He can't submit me. I'm a better submission artist than he is. I'll still get him with the striking. You know what I mean? And all the time this is going on, Uzum is, just locking up with him, pushing him up against the cage, chip shot here, chip shot there. Uzman has some good, spots in the fight, but it was nothing significant. I didn't really see anything that truly rattled Woodley, but I'm pretty sure Woodley will be back, better than ever. But it's your boy Rob Cologne, man. Go ahead, make sure you comment, subscribe.